Hello and welcome to Etherwaves, where we do gear, beer, music, and we play some sets. My name is Phil, and this is episode 10, the finale of season 1.
Boom. Big old finale. Well, I'm Teddy. Hello.
And I'm Igor, and I'm very happy to have a guest musician, somebody that I admire a lot musically, Damon, also known as SUNBEAMER. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey, I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, we're very, very excited to have you. I see that you have your beer right behind you. So what are you drinking?
What am I drinking? This is Noble Bright. This is from the Burlington Beer Company in Vermont, just a couple hours north. And it's a New England style pale ale brewed with New Zealand grown hops. It doesn't say exactly what hops. I know they grow a lot in New Zealand. It's really, I've been digging this brewery a lot lately. Obviously, first of all, their can art is always
That's beautiful.
Good. They always have this. They must have one designer that does everything. It all has a very cohesive style, which I like. Some of it's more geometric. This one's a little more playful, I guess you could say. But it's only 5.3% ABV, and so it is a lovely beer to drink if you want to have another beer after.
Absolutely.
Yes. All right, what about you, Teddy?
Well, our supposed sponsor, Heineken. I'm sipping on a beer from our sponsor, Heineken. Please sponsor us. Send us more jets so we can fly to Damon and perform shows out by Damon, and then also fly Damon to Chicago. Please, Heineken, do that. But this is a nice, refreshing premium malt lager, brewed in Holland. I've been to the Amsterdam brewery. Yeah, I don't know what the percent is. What's the percent?
It's a 4.
It's a 5. Oh, there it is. Yeah, 5.
Nice.
So I'm right there. I'm right there with you, Damon. Yeah, it's a 5%. I'm hanging with Damon. I might have a second one. Might have a second Heineken, maybe.
Second Heineken.
Let's see. Phil, what about you, man? What are you sipping on, Phil?
I just noticed that your green screen kind of like absorbs the Heineken, but I don't know if mine's
Oh my God, you guys both have Heineken.
Well, final episode, we got a shout out to the sponsor, right?
That works. It's really cool with yours, but yeah, I got a Heineken too, so cheers. That's Dave Stossberg level 2.
There you go. And I got a Bird Song by Temperance, Evanston, Illinois brewery, where I have never been to that brewery, but I buy Temperance quite a bit. We talk about bird song a lot on the show, and birds in general and music in nature. And I figured bird song as a name of the beer fits the show. So
yes,
that's what I'm drinking for that reason only.
Interesting fact about Evanston, Illinois. Big national news about Evanston, Illinois. First U.S. city to provide reparations, to have legal reparations put in place for African Americans, which is big news, which is wild, big news. Very cool. But yeah, just had to put that out there. That little, like, Evanston is in the spotlight right now, not just because of their great, delicious beer that is themed and with birds, which goes so perfectly with our show.
Right. Speaking of bird songs and music in general, what a segue. What are we listening to? Damon, why don't you tell us what you've been listening to lately?
Sure. Well, I have obviously been, let's see, just, sometimes it's easy to go through my library. I have, of course, been jamming the new release on Sile Records from Andrew Tasselmyer, Yesteryear. It is a lovely slab of Sile Records goodness. Big
fan of Sile.
Yeah, I mean, Boris does such a great job of staying on theme, I think. And I just feel like I pretty much always know that I'm going to like all the stuff that he, curates on his label. It's great. This one I really like got a lot of piano, samples or, piano work in it, compared to some of the other stuff that has been on Sile. And I really like it. It's been It's been good. Spun it a couple times today. It's been at the top of my list. What else? The New Tobacco, Fucked Up Friends 3. I have been jamming that a bunch. I'm a huge fan of him. Black Moth Super Rainbow, everything that Tom Feck does. I feel like, yeah, this dude's just a wizard. Like, it's just so disgusting. Like, everything he does is so gross, but it just fits together in this really awesome way that I just feel like how do you make this whole sound feel like it's just falling apart all the time, but it doesn't. Yeah, I'm a really big fan. So yeah, two somewhat different things at the top of my playlist.
Teddy?
So I have a few things. I might not talk about all of them, but I brought down some.
This would be a real rabbit hole. I mean, you talk about music. Well, I got 4 hours.
Yeah. So I brought 3 records down because I realized you guys you've shown records on this show, and I've never shown an actual record that I listened to. So I got 3 records that I've listened to recently. This guy here. So this is Otis Clay, Trying to Live My Life Without You.
Is that a green font?
It's a green font. Oh, I just realized that. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Love it.
But yeah, great little like funk soul album. I've also recently listened to this. This is called Sleep Tapes by Jeff Bridges. It is an ambient meditation record that Jeff Bridges narrates, where it's beautiful. There's like synthesizers on it. There's like field recordings. He does this whole guided meditation through Temescal Canyon where like you're supposed to like feel like you're going on a hike with Jeff Bridges. And he's like, oh, hey, you hear that train in the distance? And then in your right ear, like way off in the distance, you hear like a train going by. It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever listened to in my entire life. So I gave that another spin. And then this is from a local record label. It's from Numero Group Numero Group. Yeah, Numero Group Records here in Chicago. WTNG 89.9 FM. This is a compilation. That's the Chicago skyline there. Yeah. And this is a compilation from 89.9 FM. It's called Solid Bronze. And it's like the biggest hits from that era that were playing on that radio station in like the 60s and 70s in Chicago. So it's supposed to sound like what riding around in like a cab would sound like in the 60s and 70s in Chicago. So really beautiful thing. And then I want to give a quick shout out to a musician and a YouTuber and Instagram musician, etc. Brother versus Robot. If anybody follows him on Instagram, I was talking with him. I subscribed to his YouTube channel, and he just sent me these like dope stickers as like a thank you for subscribing to his YouTube channel. A bunch of little stickers and everything. So I thought that was really cool. I like this one a lot. It's like his little logo. Kind of looks like me a little bit if I hold it cover my face there.
Teddy, let me ask you. You mentioned Brother versus Robot before on the show, I think, as inspiration for one of your tracks at one point.
For inspiration for getting an Icy, the Critter and Guitari Icy. So he uses one of those, and that was the first time that I had kind of seen one. And then I was looking into kind of low lift visualizations for live performances when that starts happening again. And I was watching some of his videos and I was like, how's he getting those visuals? And it's just this little red box that just sits on the side.
That's a little red box. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And so, really, and I mean, his little jams and everything are really cool. He does these little like jams. He also does this thing on Instagram, which is like sandwiches and synthesizers, where he goes and gets a sandwich from like a local restaurant and just takes a picture of it next to a synthesizer. And it's like, I like both of those things. I like Milanesa tortas and like fully analog synths. So I could get down with that. But yeah, just had to give him a little shout out because I thought that was a nice little personal touch, is like a thank you for subscribing to my YouTube channel. So I had to give him a little shout out. But yeah, that's what I'm listening to. That's what I'm watching. What about you, Phil? What are you getting up to over there musically right now?
Well, I also brought some vinyl to show. This is Miles Davis. And does anybody know the name of this record?
I don't recall it.
All right. Sorry for the pop quiz. But see, the reason I want to promote this, I know everybody knows Miles Davis, but like when I was in college, I was like, oh yeah, Bitches Brew. And everybody was talking about Bitches Brew and it had a crazy album name. And I was like, this is something I'm supposed to listen to. And I did. I listened to the shit out of it. But years later, I got into this record, which is called Get Up With It. And it contains a really long track that takes up a whole side of an LP called He Loved Him Madly. And Miles wrote it in 1974 when Duke Ellington died. And it's solely dedicated to Duke Ellington. But it's this like really groovy, like atmospheric piece where this like really nice groove on the drums kicks in. And it's really straightforward and like it just feels really good. But there's like some sadness to it. Obviously, it's like a sort of lamentation of the death of the great Duke Ellington. And so I just really love Duke Ellington and Miles Davis. And this record, I'll probably listen to it 1,000 times. So highly recommend it. That's all I got this week. That's a big one. So.
That's a good one to have if you're going to have just one. Miles Davis is definitely if you're going to have one record, it's a good one to have, right? Miles Davis in general, I mean, could be any of his records. So I guess I'm next. And I recently watched the Arthur Russell documentary on Prime. I love Arthur Russell, so I've been spinning World of Echo quite a bit, and I don't have the record with me right now, but I wish I could show it. But if you guys don't know Arthur Russell, he's a cellist who passed away from complications with AIDS, and he created these moving pieces by looping cellos with delays, and that's why it's called World of Echo, and singing on top of it with a very folk-like voice, very soft voice, which didn't go well with the period. So people appreciated his music much later after he passed away. And he tried to do like club music. He tried to do like straight up like folk music, and everything that he touches is amazing to me, or he's touched was amazing to me. But I do really, really love World of Echo. That is a probably like top 10 on my top 10 albums of all time. Yeah, if you guys don't know,
where's the documentary at?
I watch it on Prime. It's like just if you have Prime, it's free.
Yeah, I'd love to check that out.
Yeah, someone recommended it to me in school because they interview his parents who were very religious. I believe he was from Iowa originally. Shout out to the Midwest, but very traditional. Did not accept his homosexuality. Did not understand his music. He fled to LA and then New York or vice versa. So he was like active in those scenes, very into the whole experimental music and trying out different things in art in general. And he's, he's just a brilliant mind that didn't get appreciated until after he passed away. But I am representing right now Folded Note Records. And I also got the triage of tapes with Folded Note for our guest, Damon. You run Folded Note Records, and you do have a release on it. What can you tell us about Folded Note a little bit?
Yeah, so it's actually a sort of collaborative effort. I run Folded Note, but I also it's also Brian Hamilton and our friend Joe. And I don't know if you guys know Brian Hamilton. He runs Small Sound, Big Sound pedals. So if you guys are into guitar pedals or anything like that, he makes some really killer dirt pedals. And Small Sound, Big Sound is his company. But yeah, we we connected a few years ago, and we're just kind of friends. And I brought it up to Brian. That was probably like end of 2019, and so. So we really started working on it, around then, and Halcyon was recorded, but my album was recorded most of 2019. Like it was sort of like the middle of the year, but we just took us a while to get it off the ground. We had a lot of stuff to kind of figure out. We just wanted to make a lot of decisions beforehand, so we had a good plan. Going into it, and sort of had a clear vision defined. So it's been since October now, and we've had 3 releases, and we're really happy with it so far. Good Grief and The Watery Aftermath. I've just enjoyed listening to so much. It's something that we, sort of talked about really early on, was like, look, there's a lot of music in the world. There's a lot of labels in the world. There's a lot of, there's no shortage of, just stuff to consume, stuff to put out. And we really want to make sure that we're only putting out stuff that we really love, and sometimes it could, when it's like three people versus just one person, sort of opinion or taste, it can be a little bit more difficult, but I feel like so far I've really enjoyed, kind of bouncing things off between the three of us and kind of coming to a group decision. It's not hard. It's really been more fun than anything. So we're really pleased with these three releases so far. And obviously there's more on the way. Is this a good time to talk about it? I mean, this is a good time to talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So our next release is going to be from Samuel Edmond. You guys may also know him as Jay Ryan. He is the guy behind the Deerhorn podcast, which is a Seat Lombard focused podcast. So shout out to that podcast because I really enjoyed listening to it. Jay's a great guy, and I enjoyed listening to it, and I really enjoyed his music. He had an album he put out himself earlier this year. And for his next release, it'll be with us on Folded Note. It'll be pretty soon. Probably don't have more details than that really to share just yet, but we're really excited about it, and can't wait to share more.
Yeah, so that's great. I'm excited to hear that because I've known about Seat Lombard for a while. I've seen a lot of videos and all, but your music to me is what just made me get actually curious about. I want to use that. How do you like it as a tool for your music specifically?
I mean, I think I've really bonded with it over the last year or so. I really didn't start getting, I think I've really only had like a serious amount of Seat Lombard gear for about a year. And Peter has been building wild instruments for some time. If you look into it, you can find a whole lot of his older instruments, the Sidrazi and, the like his old versions of the Coco Quantus, in all sorts of non-production looking enclosures, right? Stuff that he's still obviously, even this stuff is handmade, but his instrument design, he was still sort of refining at the time. But I guess to answer your question as to, how do I find it? How do I like it? When I first moved into Eurorack as, sort of a, medium for composition, I enjoyed the freedom it allowed me from, traditional music. I've been, playing normal instruments since I was 14. And, it really sort of kind of broke the mold for me. And I think a lot of people find this to be true. And that's why they get into Eurorack, or sort of non-traditional instruments, because it sort of changes the rules of how you compose, and it changes your relationship with your compositions. I really liked that it was more like, it kind of felt like a collaboration between me and the machine, rather than, just sort of this, blank slate where I had to, just kind of come up with everything and do the, and do the work. And I feel like work is maybe the wrong word there, because I think a lot of people can see stuff like this that maybe doesn't, I'm not programming sequencers, like I'm not really, what do you mean? You're not doing anything. You're not even programming a sequencer, how you haven't, composed a long repeatable sequence. How is this composition? And I feel like it's still composition. It's just different. You just have to think of it differently. It's a dance. It's you and, the machine. And, I feel like it's more like molding clay rather than, making something, completely out of nothing. Sometimes, I find that to be inspiring, really, because just like anything, sometimes you sit down, you have a bad day, nothing sounds good. You're like, I hate all my gear. I'm going to throw it away. It sucks. Yes. Like, I'm just so tired of it. Why does this sound like this? Why is the left buffer on my Coco so freaking noisy? I hate it. Why is, why are my levels wrong? Like, just I hate it. We all have those days, right? And And I feel like more than anything, sometimes interacting with, the Seattle Lombard stuff and its unpredictability, it makes for those days a lot, but it also makes for days where the opposite is true. I've just sometimes, I moved. I moved last year, and my stuff was in cases for like a month. And I remember the first time I took my SID racks out after I moved, and my Coco Quantas, and I plugged them in, and I hadn't tuned them or touched anything, and I just turned them on. I had like a reverb, and all the bars were in tune with each other, and my Coco buffers were just like super clean and buttery, and it was perfect. And I was like, I haven't touched this stuff in months. This should sound like garbage, but it just sounds perfect today. And I like that. I like that unpredictability sometimes. It always gives me a reason to go in and try again if I've had a bad day,
Yeah, absolutely.
If I may, what's interesting hearing you talk, it just made me start thinking about, as you were saying, Damon, like, it's like molding clay, it's like a dance, and all these kind of analogies for what these comparisons for what synthesizing music is like, or kind of composing an entire piece, just, sitting in your house. It makes me kind of think back to when I've been in bands in the past, and you were talking about playing like a quote unquote like normal instrument, or just drums or guitars, keyboard or whatever. But I feel like I develop a similar relationship to this rig behind me as I did with the musicians that I would show up in a room with. It's not the same. It's not the same, but it's similar because there is this dialogue of like, well, I want to do this. And then the devices can be like, yeah, but like, what about this way? Yeah. And you're like,
maybe I don't want to do that today.
Yeah, you're like, wait, hold on a second. I didn't want to do it that way, but like that way's kind of cool. And it's this dialogue that, especially during COVID, and kind of quarantine, that I've really missed having with actual musicians in person. But I feel like you can build a similar relationship when you were talking about moving, because I did right at the beginning of quarantine as well, and all my stuff was in boxes. But what was interesting is like you take it out and you connect it, and it's like an old friend.
Yeah. It was the best part about the finishing such a stressful move is like it's just kind of opening my cases, being like
yes.
Yeah. So I moved like 2,000 miles. It was quite a move, and so it was a big relief to like I bought these like I think they're like rifle cases or something, and I custom cut the foam for like all of because it's not like you can go out and get a case for a Coco Quantas, like they don't make those. So I was just like, all right, I can fit like 4 of these things in one of these cases if I cut them.
That is awesome. I have a gun case as well.
It was quite a to-do. I know. I was like, I hope the movers don't think that I'm like trying to make them illegally move firearms. Like I don't own any firearms. They're just weird instruments. Feel free to have a look. You're not going to understand. It's okay.
And they look like bombs. So
I mean, well, thankfully, I'm not moving them patched, so they look a little bit less intimidating.
I glued magic cards onto my gun case to make it not seem as intimidating, and I put like a Shure microphone sticker on there, even though I don't own any Shure microphones. It's like somehow
you don't own like a 57? Like
no. Nope.
I thought it was just like mandatory. Like you just.
you did move from Texas, so you did move from Texas. So at least until you cross that Texas border, no one would be surprised if you're carrying the gun around. But then you moved to Massachusetts,
and we really weren't sure what to expect because this was like peak COVID last year, and I was like, are they going to be like, you are entering our state, you have to quarantine? And like, no, we just drove and it was fine.
Damon, can I ask a question about, it was Halcyon? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes.
So Halcyon, as far as I understand, is it about like happiness, peak happiness, or peak, or like a time of joy, or
yeah, it's about, yes. And I feel like it's sort of about how that memory, it's usually not a word that you would use to refer to something recent. It is I think for me, it's a word that conjures up a lot of sort of nostalgia. It feels like rose-colored glasses. It feels like, reflecting on a time in your life and just thinking like, man, those were the times. And maybe those weren't the times. Maybe they weren't, but maybe it feels like they were, when you're viewing it through the lens of, whatever experiences you've had since then, right?
Yeah, like a creative memory. Like it's like a collaborative between fact and like what you want it to be, kind of.
And so the stuff was it was written at a time that where I sort of had just moved again. Like I moved from California to Texas. I lived there for like a couple of years, and then I moved back east again. And so I've just been kind of hopping around a lot the last 5 years, and it's just sort of made me like feel like, man, I kind of miss I kind of miss like the comfort of like really being settled somewhere. And I think that was probably sort of something that was going through my brain when I was recording.
Okay. So the title of the album kind of encompasses where you were at mentally, kind of. I guess you could say when you were writing it. Was there any track or anything on the album that you think kind of connects to that theme, or were the track titles connected to that theme in some way, or?
That's a good question. I mean, I'd like to think that not really any one specific track, to me was really like a crystallization of that sort of mood. It really, like, to me, was the whole album. But I don't know. I guess I don't really know how to answer that. I feel like it was really sort of the creation of the whole thing. I don't feel like I really have a specific track to me that stands out. I think a lot of the I really don't think
no, that's fine.
I shoehorn a track into that answer.
No, not at all. I think I just like to ask that question sometimes, because there's, I think people approach writing albums in different ways. Like sometimes it's like, there can be this collection of songs, and then I try to think about how that collections of songs kind of fit into where I was at in my life, or this moment in time. Or you can start with this kind of idea and then kind of use that idea as a site, not to continue to reference Guns, but as this kind of like site to kind of like set aim on a vibe or like a story that you're trying to tell. So I was just seeing if like almost which direction you were working on this album. Was it kind of like the idea of Halcyon kind of came up because you were thinking through that kind of concept or conceptually, and then you wrote the tracks, or did you write the tracks and then look back on it and go, aha, Halcyon?
I think if I had to say, it would be more of the latter. It was more of like I feel like I don't put so much forethought into like the tracks before I write them. I usually like, when I'm writing tracks or recording tracks, it's kind of a conscious decision to usually like kind of decide on a feel, on a mood, which usually sort of also defines like a set of gear. Like, we all probably have a lot of gear. I have a lot of gear. But you can't play everything all the time. And also I feel like that makes for crappy albums, unless you're really good at it and, you have a way to meld all this stuff together. But, it doesn't feel cohesive to me on a personal level if I'm like grabbing just, whatever and throwing it on an album. So I kind of think about like how I set the scene, and then once I'm done, I feel like I just kind of reflect on it and try to figure out like what it means to me on a more like on a different level, I guess.
Yeah. For sure.
So that takes me a little bit to a thought process, I guess, where when I first encountered your music was with Outside Inside, which I think was your first release as SUNBEAMER. And I mean, I guess we connected because I was getting into your rec at the time, and I think you already had established you had an album, and that's like you had an album, you know, and
Yeah. I was like, I'm doing an album.
right,
That
and
was
then you
fun.
know, I was in Texas at the time. I was in Houston, and I was still connecting with the local scene and understanding what a modular scene even was, especially in Houston. I know Austin had a store, but Houston didn't. But I saw a tremendous growth, and I don't want to see the word improvement in the music because that's not what I'm looking for, but a tremendous growth in the sound design and the sound that you developed. How do you see yourself, SUNBEAMER outside, inside to SUNBEAMER Helicon?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, I think just learning your tools, is a huge part of it. I never felt like I was in a rush to put out that first album, but I also felt like at the time I was confident enough in what I recorded that I wanted to release it and just kind of like get something out, because I felt like it's very easy to just kick that can down the road forever. And perfect is the enemy of good. And, great artists ship and all those like statements about like finishing a product and moving on. So yeah, I think to answer your question, I've definitely, evolved my process a little bit more in terms of, I think just in terms of the sound palette. I think I'm a little bit more tuned into what I like now and what I feel like goes together. I think it can, it's very easy to be your own worst critic, especially when you're looking back on old material. I think anybody who is an artist can probably relate to the feeling of listening to something that you finished maybe a week ago, a month ago, a year ago, and being like, oh my God, I hate this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like you stay up late one night and then you're like up until 2 a.m. and you're like, if I can just spend like one more hour on this is going to be the greatest thing I've ever made. And then you like hit save and you go to bed and you wake up the next morning and you listen to it and you're like, that's immediately going in the trash.
I do try. I feel like, I've done a pretty good job personally of not letting myself rabbit hole into something like that too much. Like you said, you're just like up late, like spending hours. Like I try not to let myself get stuck there. Like I feel like if I've been sitting in front of, a mix or a patch or whatever, and like I feel like I've hit that wall, like either I'll leave it running and like go to bed, or I'll turn it off if it's something that if I think it's that bad, I'll turn it off and then turn it back on. Especially with, this stuff, you turn it off and turn it back on. I used to think Eurorack was like, oh no, I turn it off and turn it back on. You get into banana sense and it's just like, yeah, good luck with that. This patch has been playing since yesterday afternoon. I have not turned any of this off. So yeah, just refining the palette and just sort of not being afraid to explore different, facets of the stuff that I like. I think, when I was first getting into, modular synthesis, I think all I really wanted to do was make pretty music. And so I bought rings and I got clouds and, I did the thing. Right. And it was great. And you know what? Like I still have rings and beads now and marbles. And sometimes if I'm just at home, like, and I have work to do or something, I will literally just patch marbles into rings, into beads, and just let it go while I work and stuff. And it's great. And I love that, like, I love that I can do that. I love that it's just so accessible. But I think before, where I would have just like maybe like recorded a whole track like that, now, I feel like, my intent is a little bit more clear and I have a little bit more that I want to say rather than just, something that's a little bit more on the simple side, and sort of exploring some more of the, maybe a little bit more of like the uncomfortable sounds. Not everything has to be like I love a tasty ambient blanket as much as the next ambient music lover, but I think there's a lot to say in, some of the sounds that make you raise your eyebrows a little bit.
I noticed a few tones kind of in the background, almost as like these like kind of bass layers on Halcyon, that I even thought was like, this is really beautiful, but I don't know if I've heard someone use this as a foundation for a song. There was some like maybe saw or it was more like kind of like gravelly, grainy.
Probably Just Friends. I
Okay.
used Just Friends as a, like, I would say 60% of the tracks on that record are me using Norns as a sequencer via Crow hooked up to play Just Friends as a poly synth over I2C.
Yeah, because the pads had this kind of like, for some of the songs, almost had they weren't like sine wave, warm, cut out the highs, cut out the lows, just have a nice fat mid. Like a lot of your tracks, I was noticing the bass layer. It almost felt like this, really beautifully tuned, like pulse width modulation. Like it was just like a more like chiseled foundation pad than I was used to, and I was like, genius. Yes. Love that. Like, it doesn't always have to be a sine wave being the pad. It can be this kind of like, it was this, it gave it this feeling of like intentional distortion that gives it almost this like homemade, intimate vibe. Like I'm sitting there and we're listening on maybe like dad's old speakers or something. And we're, and then there's these really beautiful cleans that start kind of like peppering in there. But yeah, I really appreciate that concept that you were just talking about, that like it doesn't always have to be this beautiful like paint smear of sine waves that starts things out, and that is the base layer for everything.
I'm really looking forward to hearing the performances tonight, and I was thinking about performance, and I kind of wanted to know more about your history as a performer. Like, when was the last time you performed live and with a crowd, let's say, and what do you want out of the future of live music, after this pandemic?
That's a great question. I love live music and I love performing, and yeah, let's talk about it. So I've been playing guitar since I was 15, and a year later I started playing drums. So I've been playing drums since I was 16, and I'm not a great keys player. I can fumble, but I the two hands still ties me up all the time. And so, I used to play in bands, I used to play live, in college. I was a drummer in like a UK post-punk sort of like deal. And we did like a little bit of playing around like the Northeast, like nothing crazy. And that was it. And I think my last live show in a band was probably like, my last like live show in a rock band was like 2007. And then I don't think I played music in front of anybody again until like 2019. Like I took like 10 years off of live music, or 11, I guess. Jeez. But yeah, after I moved back to Austin, this was like after I had released Outside Inside, and I was like kind of like, doing the modular thing. I got invited to play a modular on the spot event in Austin, because there is a little Mott's community there, mostly propped up by Matthew Hanner, who runs Oral Canyon Records, who I also want to put a shout out to because he's just the greatest dude. And I want to, just like, say how much I miss all the Oral Canyon fam in Austin. You guys are awesome.
And Damon, I believe I either played the one after you played or the one before you played. I think like we had a misconnection. Oh, no kidding?
You were like in Austin playing Mott's?
Yeah, I think we had a disconnection from like the month before or the time before. I think I was either before you or after you, and I was like, I would have driven to Austin to see you play, but I don't think I was. That's why I think I actually played the one before I played. Was it like a bagel shop, I think, or
I don't think I did the bagel shop. We had like most of the ones we did were like outdoors or at like
outdoors.
A sculpture gallery that hosted a bunch. Dimension Sculpture Gallery. There's some at like Givens Park.
It was not a bagel shop. Hold on, it was like a pastry shop, but they had a backyard and it was in the back. But of course, it was was Matthew who ran it, and yeah, shout out to Oro Canyon. And you have a release on Oro Canyon as well.
I do, yeah. I did a split with my friend Matt, who lives in London, who goes under the name Escape Craft, and we did a split on Oro Canyon a couple years ago. That was a lot of fun. But yeah, so the last time I played live, so there was another great little Austin institution called Memermo, which is run by a wonderful person named Melissa Seeley. And obviously that's been on hold for a year, but that was probably like one of the greatest things about living in Austin. It was a weekly like experimental music showcase night at, like a great little dive bar downtown, Monday nights, pay what you can at the door, and you never knew what you were going to get. And that's, I think, what made it so great. And it created such a little community that was amazing. Like you'd almost bank on seeing the same, like 60% of people at Memermo, like every week, over and over and over. And yeah, all, experimental, string outfits, like guitars, drums, performance art, music easel performances, modular performances, just anything you can think of, electroacoustic stuff. Yeah, just really great. And so I think the last time I performed was probably right before COVID. We had actually a ton of shows booked. And it was probably March. Almost, what is it? Like the end of March? I guess it was like maybe, 13 months ago. It was like probably like March 7th or something in Austin. And that was the last time I played live. And yeah, I miss it. I hope we can get back to live music this year, hopefully maybe later this year, once all the states have their vaccine situations sorted out, and, we've got that percentage of people we need to get back to doing live shows again. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do. I probably need to spend some time in Boston and find some connections there and see, what the experimental music scene is like. Because yeah, starting over.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's a great sort of segue into the next portion of the podcast, which is to have some performances. And that's, one of the main reasons we wanted to do this and have guests. And we'd love to hear some sets, I think.
Yeah.
I think I'm going first.
Yes, you are. I'm excited.
So here I go. I'm going to go first, and I'm going to play my set, and I'm going to give the people what they want.
Rainbow of trees in autumn. More beautiful than any art of man. Please lend a helping hand. So come on up to Clay County. Take some time and make yourself a friend. Because after you go, you may not know exactly where you've been, but you'll long for the time when you can get back again. Folks there are the same but different. They feel life's pain and suffer its woes. Because some people have great wealth, some are surviving. Some look to God for answers no one knows. It lies in the heart of Appalachia. It's been studied, misused, and ignored. The so-called plans to help the needy have left a debt that all can ill afford. So come on up to Clay County, Kentucky. Take some time and make yourself a friend. Because after you go, you may not know exactly where you've been. But you'll long for the time when you get back again. But you'll long for the time when you can get back again.
Yeah, Teddy.
Boom.
Oh,
That was great.
That
That was great.
I want to jump right in because you mentioned my birth, the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and I'm very curious, first of all, about the lyrics, if you don't mind
Yeah.
sharing a few things.
So here's the lyric sheet right here. So I've mentioned this earlier, but this is a song about Clay County, Kentucky. And I think my dad lived there at one point in his life. And he gave me a song and lyric and poem book that he made a couple Christmases ago. He made this like beautiful binder, and put everything in these like laminate folders. My dad had a birthday this week. He turned 78 on Monday on the 22nd. And so as like, I don't know, an ode to him, I wanted to use some of his lyrics and repurpose them. But this was all about his experience living and working in Clay County, Kentucky, and the people that he met, and what he thought was wrong with how, life existed there. The great inequities that existed there. So, I found these lyrics this morning, and I was like, all right, the song's getting lyrics today for my dad.
Nice. Yeah, I gotta say, this is probably one of the best your natural voice has sounded I've ever heard. It sounded great.
Oh, thank you. I didn't do a whole lot of reverb or anything on it except for certain parts. I like kicked it on, but the main effects that I had was
this is the reverb version,
but this was like the normal version, and there's a doubling of my voice from the TC Helicon, and then there is a chorus. To kind of give that wobble, that almost like Connor Oberst-esque, like warble, tremolo in the voice.
Yeah. Damon, what do you think?
Oh, I thought that was awesome. I liked how, I think my favorite part was just sort of how the drum rhythms was sort of kind of like slipstreaming between everything else, kind of, interchangeably, sort of lock in, fall out, lock in, fall out. I found that really engaging to listen to.
Yeah, that was all the TR8S. It's a great device.
Is that what's rack mounted up there?
Yeah, that's that guy up there.
You have an NDLR sequencer? Is that what's
So the NDLR, the Noodler from Conductive Labs, that was what was controlling everything. So
how do you say it? You say Noodler?
I say Noodler, but it's NDLR.
I think it is Noodler.
Learn something new every day.
Who knows? Yeah, I'm no aficionado on anything. But yeah, so the Cobalt 8 and the Volca bass were holding down.
We got a Noodler fan club.
Yeah. Igor's trying to get rid of his though.
I don't like to program sequencers, so I'm already not interested.
Yeah.
The point is that you don't need any programming on it. So
yeah, that's
which is great.
Yeah, I love it because
buy it from me.
You dial in kind of like a key and a scale, and then you can change chord. I use it just for chord progressions, and then my arpeggios and everything are programmed. Like the main kind of arpeggios are generally programmed on the Volca and on the Novation circuit, which the circuit's really great because I like perform those. I just get a thing going and I perform those, but you can have like dual sequences going to add some change. But yeah, I really like the TR8S because I basically just threw a bunch of delay to add those ghost notes. And then when I do that, I like to throw, it was a 5-part sequence. Each part had 16 steps, but in that 5th part, it just went completely silent. So all you hear is the trailing of all the tails of the delay. Yeah, exactly. But then because the delay hasn't kicked back in again, you hear the actual beat when it gets back to that first variation. And so that's where you would hear that lock-in of like vocals, bass, arpeggios, and the beat was just very straightforward. It's like do, 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 do. And so I like that it locks in for a little bit there, and then you just kind of get lost in this like galloping sea of delay, but then that trails off a bit, which adds this kind of like, I don't know, to me it's very like musical to just kind of have the space with no rhythm just kind of trailing away, and then it comes back in and catches you again with the rhythm. So thank you for noticing that. I'm a drummer. So
I need to find a way to work Galloping Sea of Delay into my next review of anything.
Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah. As the only non-drummer in the room today, I gotta say the drums were sick. That was definitely the attention grabber. I mean, your voice was beautiful, and I think I mentioned Nick Cave with effects. You had a very I think intimate sound to your voice tonight, which I loved. But the drums were wait, what was that? Like, did that skip a beat? Did that not skip a beat? What, like, how do I count this? But the melody, the harmony, the chords, and the bass made you like almost like, no, this is compact. This is a thing. And the drum is like, no, it's not.
I like that. I like that guesswork. I mean, those are the songs that I like listening to the most. And I think I write songs. I had just had a conversation with this guy. He's a really wonderful rapper here in Chicago. His name's Roy Kinsey, and we have a book club together. And we're reading Talib Kweli's Vibrate Higher right now. And yeah, just great musician. But we were just talking about why we make music. And he said he kind of sees music as this service to the kind of human existence. Like he makes music to put things out into the world so that if someone needs it or if someone's going through something or someone has a similar life experience to him that he's voicing or sounding in his music, that they now feel like they're not alone or that they have someone to relate to. And what's interesting is in that conversation, I was sitting there and I was like, I almost exclusively make music for me. Like I make music that I would like to listen to, but I don't really think about who else would like to listen to my music or why I make music. But it's not like I'm like bogarting my music and not putting it out there. Obviously, I'm performing it on a show that then is going out into the world. But like, yeah, I think that's an interesting question to ponder, which is like, who do you write music for? Why do you write music? Why do you create? I don't know. It's something that's fascinating. And so when I make music like that, that's kind of like galloping and kind of detached from rhythm and everything. Maybe it's my like middle finger to being a drummer and being like, no, I'm not 4 on the floor Teddy anymore. I'm not playing your stupid stoner metal rock beats. Like, it's like, I'm going to detach from rhythm and do it in the way that I've always wanted to. But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting thing to think about. Why do we make music? Why do you create? Why do you choose to create?
And with that, I do want to put that question to Damon.
I was gonna say, I feel like everybody should answer that question. It's Teddy. We'll go around the circle. Yeah, I think about that a lot. Like I think about that all the time. Almost every time I'm making music, I think about that, and I think it's because I think I would say that I also mostly make music for myself. I make music that I enjoy listening to, I make music because I find it to be therapeutic. I especially make ambient music because I feel like it is sort of my own sort of therapy, because I am a high-strung person. Like I feel like I'm a very sort of just like wound up person inside, and I feel like making especially ambient music really is like just like a huge release for me, and it really sort of helps like me to kind of like quiet my mind and to focus and to kind of like like to be in the moment versus like just like my brain like firing off on all cylinders all the time. Yeah,
for sure. I feel all of that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Igor, why do you make music? Why do you create?
I as we're talking about this, I'm trying to think about it, because I would agree that I do make music for myself. But I think there's a lot of two things that I think about is while I'm writing, I want to solve a puzzle, and that puzzle may or may not be there for me to solve. So I may overcomplicate things on my own brain because I'm trying to solve something that doesn't need to be solved. But I do want to try to fit pieces that are missing while I'm writing, and this is when it comes to like actually writing, recording a record and trying to put out a body of work, not when I'm jamming, not when I'm like messing with a modular or whatever, but when I'm trying to write a piece of music. I think in puzzle mentality, like what is something that I could put here? What am I trying to solve? What are the questions that I'm asking with the bottom line? Like the first track that I record, what are the questions that track is posing to me? And a lot of times I start with a drone. A lot of times I start with a melody or something, but I do want to like answer that question. So I think like that's how I look at when I'm writing. But at the same time, like I try to find challenges for myself in music. So what is a direction that I didn't go to before? What is a sound that I haven't explored yet? Or how can I make a sound that already exists, whether it might be something that I just recorded? How can I challenge that sound because that already sounds like something else? How can I make that mine? And I think those are the two things that I'm always not fighting with, but like exploring this. How can I solve the question that the music I'm writing or the music that I'm playing is asking me? And how can I take that information or that puzzle itself and take it to a direction that I've never taken before?
I mean, I'm not going to be able to answer this question, but I mean, I think I talked about this several episodes ago, that Dmitry Yevgrafov record, where he talks about like the emptiness and the triviality of things. And I mean, to me, like, I can't really accept a world that is just monads or whatever, like a purely materialistic conception of the universe that, you know, I don't want to get into like metaphysics or anything, but I mean, there's been moments in life where, you know, I may have heard like a string quartet movement by Schubert that just like absolutely sweeps over me and it just carries me away to some other place. And, you know, without like venturing into any kind of like spiritual or religious talk, like to me, it's a reason to be alive. I mean, quite frankly, like I would not want to live without it. I have to make it and I have to consume it, and that's it. Period.
Well, I think a lot about the making and consuming, and I think to me that's something, you know, I know I answered earlier saying like I make music for myself, but it really comes down to this almost like guilt about consumption sometimes, where it's like if I just consume and consume and consume and just eat like what everybody else is putting out there in the world, and I don't contribute anything, if I don't throw my hat in and I don't like do my part to like say like you inspired me, here's what it inspired, like whether that is a beautiful thing that I wrote or just something obnoxious that I wrote or something that I paint or draw or sketch or build, like just the creation of things, I think to me, for whatever reason, helps this level the balance of am I solely a consumer, just being spoon-fed stuff, or because I think about how things are made because I make them myself, I don't know. Maybe I feel like I'm sounding kind of douchey right now. I don't know.
No, I think it's like, I think earlier when I was talking about how like, you know, I just like wanted to get that first album out the door, blah, 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 Perfect Send Me Good. Like, I think maybe a lot of other people feel this way as well, especially when you're doing like a first release, but you feel like I should put something out there, you know, like it is sort of a guilt thing. You feel like maybe it's consumption of media, maybe it's consumption of like gear. Maybe you're just like, you feel like, oh man, I've bought too many synthesizers and I haven't released anything. Or maybe you feel like, you know, I've listened to all this stuff, I never put anything out there myself, or I go to these shows, but I never play a show, you know, but I like, you know, I feel like I'm somebody that loves music very deeply. Why am I not contributing? You know, those, yeah, like that kind of stuff absolutely like went through my, you know, head at the time. So I think I think that's very real.
Yeah, that's a great comment. So do you want to contribute to some music?
Yeah,
I'm just segueing.
Teddy, I am ready and willing.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
You got to put that on your gun case now, dude, so people think it's just a Magic the Gathering case.
I actually keep this on my desk. So I play Commander.
Yes.
I play EDH Discord. And so when everyone's shuffling up their shit and ready, and I've already drawn my hand and I'm just waiting for people to finish mulling, I just slap this down the table so that people know that I am ready and willing. So.
That is amazing. I'm a teacher and I run a Commander club.
Oh shit!
At my school, we got like over 100,000 cards donated in 2 years.
My God, do you want some more cards? I have like 4,000 like bulk. I'm trying to like.
We don't know what to do with them, but yeah, that's awesome that you play Commander.
Build a house out of them.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, yeah, let's hear some
We can
tunes.
have a little Magic the Gathering geek out later.
Yeah.
All right.
And Damon is back. And what an amazing set that was.
That was incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, that was sick.
There was a lot of unpredictability involved today. We'll say
which
that.
we love. We love the unpredictable. But I do want to talk about, I guess, two things, and I think we can do a little bit of a discussion over the equipment that you use, which is very unique on its own. It's the Ciel stuff. We talked a little bit about the Pinger, and the Lyra, but I want to bring on the music the contrast between the higher frequencies that were very textural, and I think I called you the SMR Lord in the chat, because that was very like ear massage, and then the heaviness of the drum, and that contrast that would come in and out and back and forth. You switch between the two. It's just like, here's some love. Here's some, like, we got to talk about some serious shit right here. Now here's some a little bit more love. Like I felt like I was like having a conversation with my mom all over again. But that's in the best way possible. I love my mom, but
I love my mom.
Tough. It felt a little bit like, like tender care, but here's how life is, right? There was like both like those. Those two feelings that contrasted each other, they were coming in at the right time. I love that. Phil, I do want to hear what you thought about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't want to, my family, no one in my family like is a real playing musician. And they've watched some episodes of the show and they're like, it's too technical. You talk about gear and all this stuff. But like, in all honesty, like you have a very clear comfort with gear and mastery of it. And when Igor asked you about your journey earlier and you talked about your evolution as a synthesist, it made me think about like envelope generators, for example, like, and I was really curious as to how those were being used in this piece and like how intentional that is and how. So I see you pointing at, is that the Lyra?
So I'm pointing at the Von Gogh paragraphs here, which I like, they should just build these into every Lyra. Like I don't think I've ever had a pedal or a piece of gear that I felt like really should have been part of something else so much that I feel like with the paragraphs and the Lyra, right? The Lyra doesn't really have an envelope. Like, I mean, it kind of does. Like it has like the fast or slow switch, which is basically all you get. But like this turns your Lyra into, it just gives you so much more control over like how the sound is. And like, I mean, the Lyra needs a filter, like, right? It's these massive, like, unbridled, like oscillator, like wall of, like sawtooth waves. And the paragraphs being not only a filter, but an envelope, like really just, it's the two missing things from the Lyra. The Lyra has everything you want except for a filter and an envelope, and the Paragraphs has that. So I don't see myself separating these two pieces of gear anytime soon. They really go together.
Yeah.
And one,
Go ahead, Phil.
Big shout out to Matt Lowry for putting this idea in my head that these two things should go together.
that's rad. I mean, the other question is, since it's so relevant right now, and big buzz item, the long-awaited release of beads. Like, what are your impressions of it? Are you happy with it? And was it being used here?
No, so there's no Eurorack in this piece. This piece sort of setup that I've got here is basically, I have a Lori Mill keyed moss tone, which you can't really see. It's over here. Hey, gear table. Okay, so Lori Mill keyed moss tone here, which is sort of like the synth tone generator, and that's being filtered by the wing pinger, which is then being sent into Norns, which is running OO, and I have 6 loops going on here. And then all that is being processed by Coco. An earlier version of this patch, I sort of had Coco doing delays, but now I have it sort of doing loops. And then the Ultra Shear is on an effects send here. So the Lyra is, actually I sent a little bit of Lyra to the Ultra Shear, but it's mostly the other stuff here. And the nice thing about the wing pinger is, even when you are using it to process audio rather than a generator, it can still do all of the things that it does when it's not processing audio. So that's how you can still get nice little like filter sweepy stuff, but you can also plonk away at the cue and get some. And what I'm actually doing here is I'm sending the triggers and the steps from the wing pinger into the sort of oscillator triggers of the moss tone. So when the wing pinger is sort of playing itself with its cross sort of logic network, it's also playing the moss tone, which it is processing. And I really like that sort of interaction between the two.
Yeah, I love how you think about pairings of gear rather than this is my pad, this is my bass. You know what I mean? Like you're thinking of things that are not even from the same manufacturer that do go well together. I know we talked a little bit about Ciat Lombard, but I do want to talk a little bit more about it. How do you feel about the Coco Quantos? I know you have more of Ciat's gear. What else?
Sort of also here, but if I had to sell all of my Ciat Lombard gear and keep one, I think it'd be very hard for me to choose between Plum Butter and Coco Quantos. Coco Quantos was my first Ciat Lombard purchase, and I mean, I think it is probably one of the most flexible things, but that's because it's just such a fantastic audio processor, and so you can bring all sorts of other things into it. That said, I mean, the Plum Butter is also an amazing audio processor. I love the filters in the Plum Butter, and I love putting things through it. But the Coco really just has that sort of thing. I would also say that, for better or worse, and unfortunately I think this is for worse, the Coco is also the most temperamental piece of Ciat Lombard gear I have. And I know that temperamental sort of comes with the territory, but there is a somewhat moderately well-documented, I don't know if you want to call it an issue, but a thing that happens where sometimes the Coco buffers are just like angry. Like they get really distorted, and when you record into them and play them back, they're just like, I mean, Coco's always very noisy. That's kind of its thing, but this is just like far beyond that. It's very, very distorted, very like, sort of like sample rate reduction madness, very not pretty. So sometimes my Coco was that way for like a couple months, and then like it went back to normal. Sometimes it's like I just power cycle it and it goes away. Sometimes if I place something really hot into the buffers, that fixes it. Sometimes if I place something really quiet into the buffers, that fixes it. It's just like, I think of all of my Ciat Lombard gear, it's too bad because it's my favorite, but it's also like the biggest pain in my ass.
For sure.
When gear has character like that, though, I think that's why you build these attachments to it, because it's like, I don't know, because you can't sell it. And so
Scott Lombard you can sell now because
well, I get, but I'm saying like if something's kind of like finicky, like I'm sure you could sell. But I'm saying like,
that's what you mean.
let's say like you describe, you know, you put in the listing, you're like, yeah, blah 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 is kind of finicky, and like, you know, sometimes I got to crank, you know, obviously you wouldn't list it that way because it wouldn't sell. But I guess what I'm saying is like when you learn the ins and outs of something and like how to deal with it when it's temperamental. You kind of build this attachment to it. I have an SP404 that's not in my current rig, but it was the first, like your Coco, it was like my first introduction into electronic instruments. And it's so
legendary instrument in itself.
Yeah. And I love the sampling technique and everything like that, that you can get from it. Like there's the ways you can use it, but the power plug on the back of mine for the last like 6 years is incredibly temperamental. And I have to kind of like I have to like wrap the wire and like tuck it and do all this weird stuff so that it doesn't, because if I nudge it, it just powers the entire device down. And I've taken it to like an electrician and had them look at it, and they were just like, well, you can just get a whole new like circuit board or what. And I'm like, oh, screw that. Like I would just have to get a new device.
Oh, is the other side of it like soldered to the board? You can't just like swap the power itself.
I haven't cracked it open. I don't know anything about that. I probably should, but I love the thing because I can get it to work and use it how I want. And I think that's the thing is like when something has that character that it's like, I don't know, it makes me think of like, well, let me talk to him. Like, listen, we got this thing. Just he's having a bad day. We're on good terms. Let me go talk to him. I can take care of it. And I don't know, just building that kind of personal relationship with an instrument, I think is really enjoyable, and it makes when it performs well, you're like, yes, I helped it get there. I had a part in that.
Yeah, I think what's almost a little bit ironic about how I feel about, you know, what just happened was that I feel like less than satisfied with how my loops on O sound, which is, like I said, ironic because I feel like that is the most controllable, easily predictable piece of this whole table, yet somehow that's the piece that I felt like I was unhappy with.
Well, we were very happy with everything you did, so we loved it. I'm actually excited to revisit it. I just wanted to listen to that again. So
same.
Yeah, I'm also excited to revisit it on like, you know, like I feel like for whatever reason my headphones feel a little quiet today, so I'm excited to revisit my recorded version later and see how I feel about it.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys this is like so much fun to be on here and be playing and stuff. And so I just, thanks for having me on. This has been fun.
We love having you.
Looking forward to 2 more of these.
Absolutely. Well, should we dive into some more tunes?
Yeah, let's do it. That was fantastic. I think Igor is up next.
Yeah, I'm up. Let's do it.
back in here, Igor.
Back in the mix, dude.
I am here.
Igor. Yeah,
like-
go ahead, Phil. Go.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was like your heist piece. Like I was ready for the revolution, for you to like really pull off something that was going to do some damage to some evil people. Like finally some evil people were going to get something done to them. But in all seriousness, that was like a really wonderful vibe you just created. Felt great, and I was comfortable, chilling, and I really enjoyed that. So start with that.
I appreciate that. That was fun.
I had so many like visuals of live events where that song could be playing. Like immediately there was this like, this could be in an art gallery, and I'm just like just zoning out to this and like hanging out. But the other thing I was like thinking, I didn't type this in the chat or anything, but it was like, dude, this is some like, that's like music that was composed for a fucking like high-end fashion show in like Milan. And like, you just got these fucking like models just like coming down the runway, and it makes so much sense. And there's just so much art that is just like, just engulfing the audience. And that is the soundtrack to like high art engulfing an audience. I you know, and I don't rank this was your best to me. This was your best. All of them. It's a delicate thing to like say where that blah blah blah, because all of your performances have been like really inspiring, and I love you as a musician and as a friend. But like this one to me was like, maybe it was because of the rhythm and the rhythmic performance in it, that I, as like a drummer that often like shits on like, oh dude, I don't like drumming anymore. I was drawn to it. I was drawn to your rhythm section. I was drawn to the textures that you were throwing out there. I feel like this is like a night of polyrhythms and counter rhythms and stuff like that between Damon's set and yours. It's been really enjoyable.
And yours.
Yeah, but like, I'm not trying to go back to mine. Shush. You killed it, man. I have a few questions. I want to let Damon jump in. And yeah, go for it.
Oh, I'm in the middle of sneezing. You should just.
All right. Well, I'll dive into some questions then. But yeah, so how there was a moment. I was saying that there was like there was this like clapping, this like galloping sound that you brought in at the end. How, like, what can you walk me through? Like, how many different sounds did you have going in that song? How, like, as far as like, obviously knowing nothing about modular, but like, I'm just curious, what was triggering, what was going on? Because there was so much, and I was so stimulated by it.
Yeah, so I think the main thing was the bitbox, which, you know, where all the drum samples are from. I only have, I thought I had 6. I actually have 7 samples there. Everything was being either by our favorite Pamela's New Workout or actually sequenced drum programming in her mod. So I have a lot of her mod going into that. Her mod's my sequencer. So, but instead of sending pitch, it's sending gates. So all that, I have all the high percussion elements. There's like some noise, there's some hi-hats, there's weird percussion in there. All that was going through the data bender, which is where you get the repeats, the distortion, the glitches, all going through that. The kick was actually going to the muscle, which is my newest module, which is a compressor with sidechain. So the whole mix was being sidechained by the kick, and the kick was the only thing that was literally going through. So there was a lot of that, what you get from a sidechain compressor thing. So that's the drum part. Literally one melody, which is, just like, what am I doing? I'm using, I don't even know what I'm using for the melody, to be honest. I'm using something for the melody. I have a bass that was doing a lot of was actually triangle wave bass. I was doing a lot of the wow thing with the filter, with some resonance there. And the pad was Morphogene. And that's how I started and ended the set with Morphogene. That's
Morphine's an instrument. I did a set like last summer, or sorry, was that two summers ago? Because time doesn't matter. It was like just Morphogene. So like, yeah, I have 2 Morphogenes. I love that thing. It's amazing.
Yeah, you could easily have 2, and then you could easily do a set with 1. Yeah, it's just that amazing for sure.
I didn't know you had a data bender. Do you love it?
I do love it. Yeah. And I love it for, again, you talk about some gear that is unpredictable. There are a lot of controls in it, but they don't always respond the way you expect them to. So I love them for it. But so it's more of like a taming the module than it is a controlling the module. You're just letting it know how weird you want it to get.
Kind of my thing. Sounds intriguing. I feel like I've had a sort of love-hate relationship with some of the qubit stuff that I've tried. So
same here. But I think that the data bender is definitely where I found some love, and I love the fact that if you put in a mono signal, you get stereo glitch out. So some of the glitch happens here, some of the glitch happens here. So a lot of ear candy for what I'm doing. And the funny thing is, so what I did, like I said, I was sending just the higher part of the drum. I was sending the entire drum mix into it, but just filtering everything that was high. And that gets you just more texture, and it doesn't need to be like, it doesn't conflict on the low end. And I think I like that a lot.
Well, we talked earlier about like the why, these sort of like grandiose question of why we make music, but I'm also interested in the how of like the kind of daily inner workings of Igor in terms of like, did you go in with an idea? Like where did you start, or did you have like an end in mind? Like, what were you thinking?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I actually had a patch prepared for this on Sunday. And I was literally going to loop guitars into different delays, different loopers, different granulators. And I was just going to have like this wall of guitar sound coming through with the module. So guitar into modular and all that. And I was like, nah, I'm unpatching all that. And I was ready. Like I had the set ready for tonight. And this was actually very quick. Like I need to get something done that sounds cohesive for the finale, the last episode of the show, right? So it has to sound good. So I started literally with the melody that like that was the thing that I wanted to work around. And I don't know, I got some All-Tech Boards of Canada's vibe from that melody and the sound that I found. Like, all right, I'm going to add like glitchy beats, some minimal stuff going in the back. I don't want this to be hard hitting or anything, but I do want to create some interesting sounds. So I was joking around before, I think it was on the green room part of this, where let's see who can get like what time signature I'm in. But I have like a 5 against 7, 7 against 8, and 5 against 8 in 3 different parts. So joking around, like impossible to find what the time signature is. But I also wanted to play with different patterns. Essentially, I wanted to get a pattern of 5, a pattern of 7. Where can I throw in the 8 that was going to lock this down? And that's the thought process, I think.
Well, I loved it, and Matt or not, I mean, I wasn't counting because I was just like lost in the enjoyment of it. Mm-hmm. So I totally forgot about the like challenge to do that, and I wish I had. But I just once again thoroughly enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was fun. I want to I actually want to revisit this because it's never the same once you play. And once you listen to it again, I might think, "Wow, that was total shit." But I enjoyed it while I played it. It was fun, and I got the projector on for the first time.
Yes. Can you talk? Were you projecting something that was audio adaptive at all, or was it just kind of like just kind of like a looping kind of visual? Or
yeah, no, I went on Vimeo and I found like something that was under like around 10 minutes was like 8.5. That was like just a little abstract. I literally went on Vimeo, searched for abstract on the search bar, saw like something that was black and blue, and I'm like, all right, I'm vibing with that.
Hell yeah.
It's like when I need a sample from Freesound. I'm just like
Sure, we'll take it. Okay.
Click, drag, done. Yeah.
Drag done.
Well, Phil, for the last set of the season of season 1, you ready to take us home?
Yeah, let's do it.
Phil, what a set, my man.
Thanks.
The beat drops, you had a really nice chord introduction. Per usual, I'm curious about key and scale that you're in. What were you working in tonight?
It's like D major. Yeah.
Okay.
The D major 7 chord was kind of most of what was happening. So.
Okay. And what were you using? Did we identify rings was in there?
Yes.
Okay. What else were what else were you using on the rack tonight?
Yeah, what was like the main sort of like the main ratcheting melody voice?
Yeah, that first part with those ratchets was actually the Mother 32, and that was being sent into Monsoon, and there was also like a dry signal of that, but the ratchets were a Doepfer clock multiplier kind of thing that were sending gates or whatever.
No, that sounded great. That sounded very again, something that you could hear in an art gallery, something that you could just like vibe to for a while. I did enjoy when you brought in the key that you were playing in front of you. I don't know what you have like the key step, right? So what is that connected to, and what were you actually playing with your hands on the keys?
Yeah, so that is controlling elements,
Mm-hmm.
which I've been using that a lot. So trying to get that bowing kind of sound, and that was being run through Desmodus Versio.
Yeah. I loved everything that you were doing.
Versio is because of all the modules. Like, I just cannot keep the noise engineering stuff straight. Like, they're easy to identify, right? Like, random weird Latin sounding thing. No idea what it does.
Yeah, so it is a reverb module, and I think Desmodus is the word for bat. So for to pay tribute to caves or whatever. So yeah, I dig it.
Yeah, and we got to do a shout out for Noise Engineering's service, right, Phil? Because they repair modules or send you new ones if you have a problem with them.
That's right. Yeah, I'm a big fan. So
yeah, no, Noise Engineering is great. I need to dive back more into what they do, because I think right now I only have the Sync Bucina, which is like a 4 HP envelope, low pass gate, trigger, whatever, envelope out, envelope in, VCA, low pass gate, in the 1 4 HP module. I think that's my only Noise Engineering, but I like their stuff a lot.
Hey Phil, you were saying kind of behind the scenes after your set that you really got into your set tonight, and that you were feeling it. What were you feeling in your set? Like what was something, I ask this often on the show, like what was something that was bringing you joy? What was something that you were just really vibing on in your set tonight?
Well, yeah, I mean, another conversation we were having at one of the breaks was about drummers, and I was kind of complaining about like showboaty, virtuosic drumming, and there's nothing wrong with that, but this like piece when I asked Igor how did this begin, like this really began with like a really basic beat from DFAM, and normally I don't use DFAM, for beats, but today I did, and yeah, there's some stuff going on with Morphogene there that was making the beat a little chop. And then there was like a dry version of that going into the system too. But I was just like enjoying the simple groove. And so, I think back to some of those old drum lessons, like one of my drum teachers early on. It's like, you want to like learn how to play the drums, like listen to AC/DC's Back in Black and just learn how to play a beat and quit trying to show off. And, and I hate AC/DC, but he had a good point. So I was just like enjoying the simplicity of that groove. And
I did enjoy that too. I think that was, I think what you did tonight was just like really, really, really good feel, good sound, good beat, good vibe. I had a lot of fun.
It was really well layered. Yeah. Like you, and the like I said, there was an introduction of chord and bass that I really loved your introductions tonight. It was I don't know how long did you spend putting this together? It felt very well thought out.
Yeah, it was done today, and I was trying to do some stuff with marbles, and I ended up just using marbles for the hi-hat with plats, and so I was having a little fun with the hi-hat, but it didn't really like take that long, other than the tuning. So it's just tune this oscillator and tune that oscillator, and like literally sitting there and tuning the oscillators. Like, so that was the bulk of the time.
The worst part.
It is, but like I also kind of like it, and it's, I mean, I don't know, maybe that sounds stupid, but I'm kind of obsessed with it.
I would like it more if I had like a little like 1U tuner or something. Like for me, it's literally the physical act of having to like go over to my like guitar pedal zone, find a tuner, plug it in, like patch every voice, because I don't have like, like the tuner on like a handy send or something like that. It's like the physical doing of it that puts me off sometimes, but
I got like really into that when I started working with high school jazz band at the same school Teddy works at. I do Russian language and jazz, and it's a lot of fun to like get a full jazz band, not just a little combo, but like a full 14-piece band to play in tune. It's really challenging.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. A lot of people will all be on the same page.
Well, guys, I just want to jump into the thank yous here, because I had a lot of fun having Damon around. SUNBEAMER, check out his music, links in description. Also check out Folded Note Records. Check out the upcoming Folded Note release coming out very soon. And check out all his discography, because everything is amazing. Loved all the sets tonight. So Damon, thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I had a blast being here. Just really thanks for having me. Very positive experience. It's been a shitty year, like it's been hard to make connections, and I think that even doing something like this is very powerful, and I'm very happy to meet y'all and do this thing. So yeah,
sure.
Well, and you got a crew in Chicago now, man. So if you come through Chicago,
I will.
You got places to crash. You got people to hang out with. You got people to play shows with. So
and likewise. Once this is over, we have talked about trying to figure out how to do some kind of like showcase on the East Coast, probably in Philly. Yeah, if something like that ever materializes, you know, we'll spread the word, you know, invite you guys, of course. Yeah.
It'd be great. Well, yeah, thank you for being here, man. It was so cool meeting you, and I've been a big fan, and
thank you.
Yeah, really, really, really great, really warm experience just getting to hear your set tonight, and yeah, just can't thank you enough. Can't thank the viewers of the show enough. Just so cool that we're wrapping up season 1, and SUNBEAMER, Damon, wrapping it up with us. And yeah, any final thoughts, Igor? Any final words, Phil? Anything before we head out, guys?
Yeah, I just want to thank the viewers out there and people who have engaged, and yeah, we look forward to more.
Hi, Mom.
All right. Thank you, guys.